performed from Montreal to Boston to Los Angeles. But Toronto, that's my chosen home. Sure, when I'm walking down Yonge Street, I see some funny people who have the nerve to point the finger at me. And grin and smile and whisper. My song was #2 on local radio. Sold 10,000 in Toronto alone. Turned down Ed Sullivan because they asked me to remove my makeup. Wouldn't do American Bandstand because of their segregation policies. I was just being me. Never tried to explain myself to anyone. And besides, none of that to worry, Jackie, because I know I look good. Got a new way of loving, baby. Thought I want to teach it to you.
Jackie Shane was a pioneer transgender soul singer, a central figure in the Toronto R&B scene. She helped shape what we know as the Toronto sound.
This is Rogers TV.
The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Tobin Tonight. I'm Tobin. It's night, supposedly, or day, whenever you're watching this. Tonight's episode, we're actually celebrating a 20th anniversary of this band's debut album. We're actually going to talk to Jonathan Gallant, a member of this band, about the whole 20th anniversary, how they're going on tour. Well, actually, what we're speaking, they're probably on tour right now, and how the band formed. It was originally named Pez because they didn't want to get in legal trouble. Somehow that didn't work. Still got in a little bit of trouble. If you're still wondering who we're talking about, it's Billy Talent. Jonathan Gallant from Billy Talent. We're going to dive into a whole bunch of different things. Obviously, because it's music, we're going to talk about the band's formation, how they found, I guess, their sound or their niche, when they thought they were hitting their stride, when they're most popular. I'm thinking when there was Simple Plan, Sum 41, Billy Talent, Avril Lavigne. That's just Canadian. And yeah, we'll get to some troubling things as well, or things that were a little bit hard for the band. I remember battling with MS. How the band kind of worked its way around that. I'm not going to ruin the whole episode for you, and I'm sure you're probably just kind of be quiet. Let me just watch the episode, and you're right. I'm just going to be quiet, and we're going to just watch the episode. Okay, let's do this. Play that intro music.
First off by saying, you started this band, I believe, in 93. Now, it wasn't under Billy Talent. I was probably 2 years old, but was it Pez that was named?
Yeah, Pez with 2 Zs.
Okay, so was this I'm a wrestling fan as well, so when someone says about the Zs, it's the Hardy Boys had a Z, the Dudley Boys had a Z.
Right.
It's was it just a common thing back in this time frame where it's S's are uncool, man?
Well, no, Pez. Well, there's the Pez dispensers, right? And I think we were scrambling for band names. We had gone through a couple. The other one was called the Zigzag. We were throwing all these stupid names out, and I don't know. I believe somebody had a Pez dispenser around or something like that, and we're like, "What about Pez?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, that's a good name, but we should put 2 Zs because." We don't want to get in any trouble. And so that was the genesis of that. We were in high school. So regrettably, we named our band Pez, and that lasted probably about 8 years before we started getting...
the irony, right? The irony.
Yeah.
We're going to put it with 2 Zs. There's no way. There's no way we can get in trouble with this. And the next minute, an American band says to you...
No ideas. Yeah, no ideas original.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I will say, when I looked up the history and seen that it was called Pez, it's okay, interesting. But then going from the name Billy Talent, I was just I love it that it says it even in Wikipedia. That's even their fans are confused because they thought that the lead singer's name was Billy Talent. And I was like, dude, I've been on this earth for like 30 something years. And like, yeah, I know the guy's name is Benjamin, but I was even kind of like, wait, so who is Billy and where is his talent? Like, did he just like, was there a guy named Billy in this? Like,
no, that's fair.
But even in saying that, it's like when I see that it's Benjamin, I'm like, man, Breaking Benjamin. But I'm like, oh, wait, they couldn't be called that either because that's another band. But I was just like, you could have claimed that. But,
yeah, we could add lots of choices. Actually, and Billy Talent was Ben's idea. He tabled that when we were trying to find a name change. And we just liked it. We liked the story of Hardcore Logo and where it came from, and you know the kind of the cockiness behind the name. And we did realize that he was going to get confused with Billy. It still happens all the time. Well, where's Billy? I love Billy. So you know, it's the burden that he has to carry on his back, and you know, it's pretty funny.
I'm pretty sure, like, I will say this much: at its peak, like, I know when they had like Sum 41, Simple Plan, Avril Lavigne, like all these kind of like punk rock kind of, I guess to some extent now, like there's a generation that would call it like emo punk. I don't know. Genres just crisscross all over the place. But I remember like watching Much Music and you'd see like Surrender come on. And I'm like, what, 10, 11? And like now being older, I can relate to that song a lot more. But
Right.
10 or 11, I'm just like, man, you guys sound so sad. Like, but like, I guess it's a big deal because Canada's music scene at a point where they had Much Music, it was like a real, like you'd be proud to go out and have your iPod or something and be like, yeah, man, I'm listening to Billy Talent. Like I was playing like an NHL 06 game with my nephew the other day, and like shows you my age because he was like, what the NHL 06? I was just like, come here, we're gonna sit down and play this whole game. And like the first song that comes on, I believe, is like, I think it's like Red Flags.
Yeah, it is
And
Red Flag.
like, I love the song. And then I went and I checked my iPhone because it's been a while since I uploaded stuff, and I've seen like 2 or 3. So then I re-downloaded that song. But he was like, "This is a cool song. Can you play this?" And I'm like, "Cool. I'm introducing a younger generation."
That's great, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. But tell me a little bit about like the hype of, I guess, when you first got your record deal, the first album, and like the success. Because I guess like being Canadian at some points has its kind of like, I guess, asterisks where it's like, oh, they're just a Canadian band. Like, yeah, we know them in Canada, but then to get worldwide famous, it has to be a big deal. Like, tell me the whole high.
You know, it's amazing because it's really hard to sit back and reflect on it, and enjoy it, because we're always trying to keep it going. But you know, it was pretty wild thinking about it, back at it, and today is like somewhere around this week is the 20th anniversary of that first record coming out. And it happened really fast. Like we were an independent band for, you know, almost 10 years. And, well, it was 10 years before that album came out. And we had released a couple of tapes, a full length CD. And then when we changed the name, we released an EP as Billy Talent.
Yeah.
And that EP ended up, you know, catching a lot of momentum in the city. And we always kind of had a little bit of confidence in our band. We thought we were a cool band. We really felt like we were different than everybody else. And in my heart, I always knew that if we were able to get our foot in the door, nobody would be able to close it. And so, you know, it happened in a great way because we worked really hard at it. And there was ups and downs and almost a breakup and all this stuff in that first 10 years. And then when we were actually getting an opportunity, everybody was just like laser focused on making sure that it was going to work out.
Now, I want to ask you, like, because again, with highs, there's lows. And I mean, some people be like, great intro, Brian. Great to like just topple into it. But I want to mention it because I think it is important. Because again, I'm a person with disability. Like, I'm open about it. But like, you actually have a band member that, like, Aaron. Now he's battling like MS. But like, how's Aaron doing through this process?
Well, he's stepped away from playing professionally. His legs just have betrayed him. That's what MS does. It's degenerative. So like he's just not capable of doing what he has done. And it's been terrible and really, really difficult to watch him have to go through this, and then watching him deal with it. The dude is the most impressive human I know. It's not only his MS, he's had so many other tragedies that happened to him. He's even had open heart surgery as a pig valve in his heart. And you know, he's an inspiring man. For him, most of it's a mental battle now, of course, a physical battle too. But he's accepted that part. But dealing with the you know, the anguish of having something you love taken away from you is a challenge for anyone, even the strongest of minds. And I don't know anybody that's stronger of mind. And it's probably another reason why we've achieved what we have, because you know, it's you're gonna make me cry, buddy.
Yeah, the only reason I brought it up was because when I read it, I was just like, you know, you're part of a band, you're part of a success, and then to see it kind of get taken away from you. But like when I read, like even on tours and stuff, doctors were saying like you could lose your lack of vision. You had to go through like bring a mini fridge on tour at certain points for them, and I'm just like, man, that's it. Because like if someone told me tomorrow, like, Brian, like you got to go on tour, but you got to take this, I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm out, and they'd be like, wow, yeah, call me that, because I'm done. But
they told him that he wouldn't be able to play drums, and like you might as well just kind of throw that aside. Yeah. And he just said, and released 4 studio albums, toured the world, accomplished incredible things, won Juno Awards. Now he speaks sometimes for the MS Society, and you know, he tries to do a little bit of motivational speaking and things like that. And you know, he's made the best of a bad bargain.
No, that's for sure. Because like, yeah, like I think you had a song. I can't remember off the top of my head, but like it was supposed to be dedicated to someone going through the struggle, and then it's like he told fans after.
Yeah, that was this. This is how it goes off the first song on the first record.
Yeah, but I like that. Like, I guess it's again with fans. Like some fans like to know everything, but I like the fact that like in a world now with social media, it's easy to dig up stuff on people. But I just like the fact at the time where it's just like you do have a little bit of privacy, and I do like that if you're a genuine fan, you kind of give them that space. But like, I'm just curious because I guess there are points and times that do you still get like messages of people like asking these questions, like how certain people are in the band, or like?
Well, yeah, and that's actually one of the difficulties that he faces, is, and one of the reasons why he's stepped back, because when he's out with us, he'll come out on the road every once in a while, but he can't play. And everywhere he turns, every which way, it's somebody's, oh, how you doing? Yeah. And then it just like he has to talk about it all the time, and he's like, man, I don't want to talk about it. He toured 15 years, and we never brought it up at all. Like I just treated him. I would call him couldn't walk somewhere. Excuse my French; those are old words.
Yeah, absolutely. I said earlier, so I'm partially to blame.
Yeah, you know, because it would just we wouldn't think about it, and he'd be like, sometimes I think back and I think about how an idiot I was. But he'd be like, oh, like we would walk to a bar or something that was a couple of kilometers away, and we're all too cheap to take a cab. I'm like, let's just walk back. It's only 45 minutes, like whatever. And he would just do it. And now looking back, it's like his legs were probably killing him. He played a show. We walked 45 minutes to the bar, and now I'm making him walk back. And like, but you know, I think he appreciated the fact that we never, yeah. And yeah, it was just, that's the way it was. And it wasn't until like we were writing Afraid of Heights, and we were working on that, and we did some summer shows, and we started to notice that like things were slipping and kick drums were getting missed, and we just brought it up, and he just kind of came clean. He had just hit another stage of struggle, and we had to take a break, and he really tried hard to figure it out and take new medicines and change lifestyle and everything like that, but nothing was working. And it got to the point where we didn't know what to do. And that's when he just said, like, I don't want this to stop you guys, and let's figure something out while I work on my body. And that's when our good friend Jordan from Alexis on Fire stepped in, and like he was just incredible.
That has to be tough though. That has to be the tough spot for, like, I'd say him, like, you know, to put himself in, of saying like, okay, like it's almost like you're in the room, you know that that's kind of maybe like, you know, you're kind of trying to decide, okay, I want to continue with you, but we got to work on this. And that's a struggle for him. But for him to kind of be like, you know, kind of, I know it's an old phrase, but it's like to man up or basically take on the responsibility of like, guys, I don't want to be like bringing you down. Like, I guess I got to eliminate myself from the situation, even though it's going to hurt me.
Yeah, I still can't imagine what his nights were like when he was thinking about it, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, like, I mean, I guess it's like, it has to be a hard point to like come to for yourself to make that decision. But I guess the other side of it is like, if you continued on and you're kind of like missing spots, I'm sure he'd be like, all right, like I'm getting frustrated. They're getting frustrated. And then eventually that could have like led up to a worse situation.
Yeah. It just wouldn't have worked. Like his, I don't know if it would ever have gone to that spot. His, standard was high, you know, he wanted to be, and all of our standard is high in terms of musicianship and everything like that. So yeah, man, it was, that was a dark time for us. And, you know, it still sucks.
Yeah. I want to, I guess to kind of to lighten it up or brighten the mood here, but like you mentioned about going on tour, like, do you have like certain places that you have in mind? Is Newfoundland on the list, or is it more or less like, no, we've done Newfoundland. We're not going back there. We got too drunk and it's not good.
Probably did get too drunk, but that would want to get me back. No, it just kind of unfolds on its own. When we got new material out and we're planning a tour, you're kind of, a lot of it hinges on the offers that you get and how good our agents, you know, at routing up a tour and figuring out where we should play. And it's their job to look at the statistics and all that stuff and come up with that. You know, we're going to put on an amazing show. That's our job. We love to hit the world. We love to play. The shows are always good. So, you know, kind of doesn't matter where.
I want to just say, like, I do appreciate, though, the fact that you did make the effort, like, at one point to come to Newfoundland during the high, because it's just like...
You know, it was our last gig before COVID was in Newfoundland. We did two, actually, the second last gig, we wrapped up all the Afraid of Heights touring in Newfoundland, and then we did these two random shows opening for this gigantic, huge German band called Die Totenhose, and then we shut it down. And we said, oh, we've worked so hard for so many years. We're going to take a year off. So we take the year off, and then COVID hits. And so we're off for another 2 years. So we were off 2 years and 11 months to the day between shows in Newfoundland. So the last show was in Newfoundland, and the first show starting back up again was in Newfoundland.
That's when you make the joke of like, we've always been around. You just haven't seen us because we've been at the bars.
Yeah. And we're definitely going to go back. We have got a good relationship with the promoter out there. And the shows are worthwhile for sure. So we'll be back in Newfoundland, no doubt.
Because there's going to be like, there's definitely a generation like myself of kids that like, yeah, we've heard you on like much music, but for me, I think the first taste of Billy Talent was basically through like an NHL game.
Yeah, well, you're not the only one.
Like there are like, even to this day, I'll go on my iPhone and their band says like NHL 22, and I'll be like, never heard the band, like the song. Then I'll go through their library and be like, oh, I like this song too. But it's like, I don't even know if there's like, because I feel like the NHL games, yes, older people still play them, but like I'm looking at my nephew, he probably just hears the song, and then if I have it in my song or like in my car, he'd be like, NHL, know this song. Like I think there's like Carolina Reaper, and he like loves that song from like NHL 22. And he's like, oh, you got that? I was like, yeah, because I heard it and I liked it too. But then he's like, sick song, isn't it? I'm like, you're like 10. Like, just settle down.
We got we had one of our songs in the most in a Tony Hawk game, because Tony Hawk he likes our band.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how it connects to people. And I don't know what it is, but we still acquire young fans. You come to our show, and it's not just old guys from the generation that was in high school when we came out. Like it's all ages, and it's generational, and it's pretty cool, man.
They're probably like, you know how you get younger fans today? It's someone somewhere along the way uses like a TikTok song
Yeah,
Like,
that happens, man. It's
like,
a different world, man.
yeah, like I grew up with Simple Plan, so I know they're like whole kind of album and stuff. But like then when I go on TikTok, my niece came in one time and it's like a trend of like I'm Just a Kid. I think that was the song that they used, and I was
Okay.
just like, man, someone at Simple Plan is loving this right now because they're like, we're hitting a stride again. Like
I know those guys are definitely loving it.
yeah, like there's a younger fan base now, and I'm just like, listen, like I love the band, but after one point of scrolling through TikToks, I'm like, okay, it's a trend, get it over, like move on.
We just did some shows with them in Europe at some festivals, and we toured with them too. They took us through the States, and they're good dudes. And but it was we hadn't seen them in a long time, and we have some young crew people with us and a couple of girls, and they're in their early 20s.
Yeah,
and they were head over heels to see Simple Plan, and they knew every single word, and I found that pretty funny.
Johnny, to kind of wrap it up, I like to have like a fun game here at the end where we call it it's just kind of like random questions. So
sure.
That literally I have no control. It's like a question generator. But again, if it's a question that you're like not answering it, you can toss it to me, or you can just basically like F it.
I'm not worried. I've done a lot of interviews.
Okay. All right. So the first random question they have here is, well, this one's actually not that bad, but I think it's kind of weird that it's a random one. But do you remember the first time that you ever felt afraid, like physically afraid of something?
Yeah. I was in actually it was pre the rock climbing club in high school. And my friend's dad was the guy that started the club, but he had taken us rock climbing a few times prior to that, and you have to do the rappelling. So you physically got to launch yourself off the mountain.
Yeah.
And that was just terrifying to try and like step back off of a mountain, even though your mind is telling you
you're safe.
Everything is cool. You're safe. You're in your harness. Everything is good. You've watched 5 people do it already. Something could not get me over the hump, and I remember my dad just like, "Come on, you can do it. You gotta go." Just give me a hard time about it.
Thanks, Dad. That's exactly what I need right now.
I can do it. It's fine. I am my dad's son, so I understand where he's coming from now. I got him back about probably half an hour later because we had to go into caves, and I wasn't afraid of the cave, but he didn't want to go down, and I'm like, "You just made me rappel." Yeah. So yeah, we were giving each other shit, but that is something that stands out on first thought.
Not bad. What bands did you grow up listening to?
Well, early, like before I got into high school and stuff like that, when I was really making my own choices, I got exposed to a lot of rock and roll through my older sister, and so at the beginning, I remember buying Who's Greatest Hits, Black Sabbath, We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll, David Lee Roth, Crazy from the Heat, like just the EP. And those were the 3 tapes that I had that I listened to a lot. And then grade school, it turned into Guns N' Roses and Metallica. And then high school was a lot of the grunge era, like Nirvana, Chili Peppers, Soundgarden, Rage Against the Machine, all those Lollapalooza bands. When I was 18, we got to see all those bands: Tool, Ministry, Primus, the 90s, especially those early 90s alternative bands, Pixies, but classic rock. Starting to like get into like experimenting with drugs and stuff like that, like all the psychedelic rock, like Jimi Hendrix and Pink Floyd and all that stuff. It's all there, and it's all in our music. It's all over the place because Ian was very much into the same bands, and same with Ben and Aaron like got more into hip hop a little later in the 90s. They really appreciated the Tribe Called Quest and all the hip hop that was coming in more so than Ian and I did, but we also loved that kind of stuff too. It's just not as we're guitar players and bass players, so we were drawn to that. Ben's a lyricist; he loved the hip hop, and but Jane's Addiction was his favorite band. So, you know, we were all over the place, and we still are. And I think that's maybe why we're a unique band.
All right, so the last random one they have here. Oh, this one's, I'll call it random, but it's a little bit, I had some input on this, but out of all your band members, which one annoyed you the most? Like, they might not annoy you now, but when you were on touring, they were just kind of like, all right, get away from me. I need space.
Ah, man.
They're probably all going to say you.
Maybe. No, probably Aaron. You know, Aaron knows how to suck your energy.
Yeah.
We call him an energy sucker. So in terms of annoying, that is kind of that's a specific definition, because that's kind of a fly is annoying, you know, like it's tall, but he could figure out ways to kind of annoy you always in a comedy way for everybody else. But then, like, oh man, it just so many times he would get you going in terms of like just telling you a story or something that was false, and you'd be like into it, like believe, and then you realize like this is man, you know, and so that kind of he was an energy sucker.
Johnny, I loved having you on. I thought the conversation was really good.
Yeah, man.
What is, I guess, I know because when you mentioned earlier about like the thing about 20 years of Billy Talent, I actually seen that on Instagram, and I was like, I was going to bring it up, but you brought it up yourself, which is
we approved those posts today, and then because Amazon, they put that thing up on
like an ad
in Dundas Square, which is really rad.
Yeah,
you know, I've received text messages saying, "Oh, I saw your face on Dundas Square today." But Ian had just randomly, he was digging through his photos, and he found that other photo. So that was kind of a cool thing. It was the same day.
Yeah. So with all that being said, like 20 years of Billy Talent, like what has been, I guess, the highlight of the 20 years? Because I mean, for me, I think it's like if someone asked me, I'd be like, well, obviously the exposure and like the memories that you have, like certain songs bring you back to certain memories. Like I can listen to Fallen Leaves and remember a time that I used to go up to the cabin, and I think what we call the cabin, people in Ontario probably call it cottage, but it's like, I remember like you meet someone new, and then you're listening, okay, this is great. And then when you hear like Surrender now, when you get older, you're like, you bring back to that time frame. And I like that with songs. Like there are songs that you remember from your childhood, but they have meaning compared to like songs now. But like, I guess 20 years for you, what's like the biggest highlight for you guys, or for you personally?
You know, man, I'm just so proud that we're doing it still, and we really care, and everybody's still on that page of you know, trying to be the best band in the world. Like, you know, that's kind of, I can't pinpoint spots because the journey is just filled with so many amazing moments, you know, and it's hard to think of that kind of stuff right out of the blue. You need triggers where, oh, you remember when we did that, you remember, and then it leads to another memory. And, you know, I just love the guys in the band, and I'll always appreciate the ups and downs, and the fact that we're like brothers rather than friends. Yeah, I don't know. I can't answer that. It's just been a wild, just fulfilling ride, and it's not over. We're gonna continue. So
I was gonna clue it up with that by saying it's my honesty, but then people would just be like, "Really? You're gonna end it with a pun?" Like,
That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Thanks to Jonathan Gallant for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening, and good night.